Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be doing a twin flame energy check-in reading. There are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the clear quartz, along with this card which says patience. Group 2 is the tiger's eye, along with this card which says destiny. And group 3 is the tree agate, along with this card which says truth. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups, or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you'd like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the cards and the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. Chose the clear quartz, along with this card which says patience. So in terms of the energies of your twin flame connection right now, this can definitely be somebody that you have been waiting to hear from for a while. You've been in separation from for a while. This is bringing to mind the idea of temperance energy. So maybe you or your person is a Sagittarius, or there's a sense of almost that you're reaching the end of the line. Your patience is really wearing thin. Maybe with the twin flame journey in general, you may have really disconnected from this person. You've surrendered, you've released the idea of reunion or 3D union, and maybe just kind of on a whim, on an impulse, you've decided to watch this video. It might be something where very infrequently you are deliberately tapping into this person's energy or into the energy of the connection, trying as best as possible to release this situation, focus on yourself, focus on your healing journey, focus on whatever other abundance the universe might have in store for you further down the road in love and in life. With this lily of the valley right up here in this card as well, this can speak about the energy of mourning, that you have essentially mourned this person, released this person and the connection, almost as if putting a death to the situation, something that may have been a very long and arduous process of grieving, or you might even still be in that stage of grieving right now. Maybe a little bit of kind of a back and forth, trying to negotiate almost with this person, with your twin flame, energetically speaking. Bargaining with the universe even, sort of like, show me what I need to do, tell me what I need to do in order to release and let go of this connection, or to call my twin flame back into my life and into my reality. There is a curiosity though with kind of these seeds of potential, these dormant seeds of potential. You may have recently reached out to your twin flame, or if you're still able to maybe watch them on social media, you've heard something about them through the grapevine and it has kind of sparked some sort of curiosity. Like, I wonder what they're up to. I wonder what's going on in their life. This can be the energy of seeking out your twin flame or Googling them. It almost feels to be very mirrored energy in this capacity, that you and your twin flame sort of go back and forth with one another. Releasing the past, releasing the connection, releasing the idea that union or reunion will take place at this point in time, and that you're almost kind of ebbing and flowing back and forth to one another, almost like the ocean tides. So times where you're feeling your twin flame very intensely, other times where they have kind of backed off energetically speaking, and it's almost, despite sort of this radio silence, this long-term, maybe no contact situation, or, relatively speaking, you may have recently kind of entered into this period of time where you've gone your separate ways, and it's kind of the energy of patience being tested here as you're feeling the sense of them coming towards you, signs and synchronicities pointing to this might be the day, this might be the month, this might be the year when things really turn around for us, when I hear from them again, only to sort of have these hopes that are lifted, and to have those thwarted at some particular point in time. Kind of two people going back and forth in the energy of running and chasing in this connection. And then again, very mirrored energy. The two of you really deeply in tune with one another on the higher self level, to where when you're feeling this kind of rush and this influx of energy, a sense of almost like maybe this is that opportunity to really crack open those seeds of potential, pick up where we left off, or start over again, kind of equipped with the wisdom of what did not work the last time around, what might be a better approach this time moving forward. And it feels to be something that the genesis of that feeling, this kind of resurgence, like the ghosts of the past, the old wounds even triggered and surfacing. This can definitely be reflective of your twin flame actively thinking about you with a sense of curiosity, a bit of nostalgia, some bittersweet memories, really wondering what if. What could we have done different? Is the time right? Are the circumstances right for us to start again? And so definitely two people that are kind of, it feels like, in a holding pattern here, sort of off in their separate corners, both really picking up on one another's energies, and with a sense of curiosity, trying to put the connection to rest, trying to move forward, trying to mourn this last stage that you've been in with one another, or even the journey, release that in general, but still a degree of curiosity, like checking in every once in a while. Is it still a connection? Is this still viable? Is there still hope? Is there still possibility here? So, going to start by taking a look at what your twin flames thoughts and feelings are about you and the state of the connection right now. Okay, so we have the Knight of Pentacles, which is Earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Five of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Eight of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. And Door to Value. So this door to value right here, this is really speaking about a window of opportunity that is closing, most likely due to the length of time that the two of you have been in disconnect from one another, or a sense of they just left you hanging on to hope and never really followed through on promises, that this connection has almost come to a crashing halt in some way. Definitely your twin flame could be overthinking or over strategizing, really kind of trapped in their mind, trapped in that mental space, trapped in the anguish of, the spilt milk of the past, crying over the spilt milk. A lot of lamentation right now, focusing on obstacles and challenges, what was said, words that can't be taken back, or almost a fear of like, is it too little too late? Can we course correct? That feels to be sort of prohibiting them, at least in the current moment, from turning around and sort of shifting from a defeatist attitude or heavy thoughts into the energy of possibilities, into a sense of, at least in the present moment, being willing to try again, feeling that, it's possible to restore in this situation. It feels that almost like hindsight is 2020 here, with all of this sort of the coins and the monies pouring out of this little crack in the door right here. They are really starting to see, it feels like as time goes on, it compounds the reality that in many ways, and this may tie into the fact that as your twin flame is maturing, as they are going about the world, going about their business, you're going about your healing journey, and the energies you're exchanging back and forth, it becomes more and more apparent to them in a variety of ways, from many different perspectives, that you were this 10 of Pentacles, you are this 10 of Pentacles, you were that wish fulfillment, and they passed by, or they hesitated, they didn't take action, they stopped short of following through on this situation. If you had had some kind of rift between the two of you, rather than putting pride and ego aside, rather than, kind of admitting or reconciling with themselves as far as fears, maybe fears of commitment, fears of getting in too deep, fears of the intensity and nature of this connection, or even fears of getting exactly what they had wanted, what they had been wishing for, what they'd been trying to manifest the whole time, that could have caused them to run from you, run from this connection, even kind of go ghost, and time has just compounded and you've not heard anything from them, that they're just really sort of stuck in place. They're stalled. They're right at that crossroads, where you left them or where they left you. They keep circling back around to that with a sense of what if, what could I have done better? What should I have done better? They don't, at least at this present time, feel to be in the energy of constructing some sort of plan of action to course correct, but they are definitely aware in a variety of ways, from a variety of angles, things that they had overlooked or undervalued about you in this connection in the past has taken on new meaning. It's taken on new weight and gravity. And this is something that it almost feels like is very constricting for them. It's an energy of like, if I knew then what I know now, what I was looking for, what I was prioritizing in the past, this was fleeting. It can tie into even like third party connections here that had interfered, or a sense of even not wanting to get tied down, a fear of commitment that may have caused your twin flame to run from this, or to break your heart, to kind of leave you hanging. And it feels like for a lot of people, those third party situations or those previous almost like shallow or surface level or very ego based qualities that they were looking for, in a person, in a partnership, those things are no longer sufficient. Those connections have come to a close. Even like lifestyle choices, for example. This could have been somebody who was just, looking for a good time, but not for a long time. And they've kind of reached a stage in their life where they may even be sort of shrouding themselves from those type of interactions. They are still finding this emptiness within that shallow company, shallow connections it's no longer able to fill. And with that is the recognition of they are at a point in their life of wanting depth, wanting meaning, being brought back to the reality that they tasted that. They were in proximity to that at one point in time through the connection with you and chose to let this go, or chose to sort of put a halt to moving forward, to investing more deeply in this connection. And with that recognition, it feels like it's so painful that, again, as more time goes by, this door of opportunity, the window of opportunity closes. It becomes more and more difficult for them to feel capable at this stage of picking themselves back up, coming to you. It's almost like there's been all of these things that have happened. There's a need to sort of not just present words of apology, but actions that will really solidify and rebuild trust, or give deeper meaning to what has been lacking, or explanation for why it's been so long, and they're just kind of now course correcting, but all they feel capable of really bringing at this point would be a single pentacle, that it's a sense of so much is owed to this connection, so much credit is owed to you for in fact being somebody who is a connection or a type of person that would have truly fulfilled them on like a deep core level, and they had undervalued that, they'd underestimated that, they had overlooked that in the past. But they feel presently just very ill-equipped to bring you anything of meaning that kind of makes up for all of this lost time, all of this spilt milk between the two of you, how to pick that up, how to clean that up, rather than looking at this as a situation where, even back to the kind of the reference to the death energy there, that it's a sense of kind of, rather than seeing this as a situation of needing to reimagine, completely rebuild from the ground up in a different way, they're still focused on kind of what fell apart and almost trying to put a band-aid on that situation. But the hurt from that, in addition to sort of the more ways in which they are recognizing you as having a lot of these qualities that now they truly are valuing. They're truly seeing that these are the things that matter. These are the things that build, a very stable and solid and worthwhile relationship. Rather than kind of taking all those things and saying, well, how do we work with that and move forward? It's a sense of almost just, how do I reapproach this situation, starting kind of from that point of where things fell apart, starting from that point of, the painful disconnect. So much is owed to the situation, but all I can think to say is I'm sorry. And they're understanding that it would take a lot more than that to undo the past, or to try to rebuild from the past, but they're almost utilizing the same tools in a lot of ways, with the exception of kind of a widened perspective or an awareness of what they were valuing in a partner, what you brought to the table, and what they chose to kind of push away or move away from. That has changed. But in terms of practical application of that knowledge and awareness, they still have a lot of movement and growth to do in terms of an expansion, in terms of a deeper belief in themselves, stepping out of this defeatist attitude into a sense of, starting from square one, reimagining, building the connection from the ground up in a different way. They're underestimating the power of their efforts at this point in time, which it feels like is contributing to them just sort of sitting in this energy of kind of like a woe is me right now. So I'm going to take a look at some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears that they're dealing with in their life right now in conjunction to this connection. What's going on in that regard? Okay, so we have worry. I am learning that worry doesn't change an outcome. And the Sun. So this is the energy of Leo right here, and that speaks about, in this context, leadership capabilities, a sense of fearing the power of this connection, fearing the sense of almost, if they were to come back to you with an apology, worried that you would eat them alive, that this is something where you would not be very receptive based on what has happened in the past, especially if there were third-party situations going on in this circumstance. There's a sense of they need to come with their tail between their legs, and they're not quite prepared to do that. They're worried that it would be too little too late. They're worried about, the intensity almost of some rage or some anger that they're feeling would be warranted. It would be well deserved in this circumstance. A sense too here with the child on this card that, again, whatever they feel they have to present at this point in time, it's almost like it's juvenile. It's a drop in the bucket. There's so much that is owed. There's so much that needs to be demonstrated, displayed, spoken about, and proven. And yet at this present moment, they're feeling, ill-equipped, like an infant, like a child. All they have is this one kind of basic thing. I'm sorry, and then not knowing how to really build from there. So this feels to be something where it would require kind of diving into some deep feelings, some deep insecurities, recognition and awareness that it feels like they are coming toward that they've made a wrong decision in this connection up to this point in time, but there's a bit of a disconnect as far as forgiving themselves for the choices that they have made, coming to you with an openness, matters of the heart, matters of emotion. This feels to be something that's not their strong suit, and talking about these things, vulnerability is not their strong suit. They may be somebody who is very materially based, kind of somebody whose love language would be gift giving, for example. Rather than sort of like words of love, affection, or affirmation. And so when it requires kind of opening up and being very honest about shadows that they've been dealing with, even about a sense of really missing you or regretting what has taken place in the past, there's a worry about, that this is so outside of their comfort zone. There's so much more that they need to kind of learn and develop and explore and discover as far as how to really speak about what they're feeling, that this is outside of their wheelhouse. This is not their strength. It's not their strong suit. And it's a fear too of being very exposed, being very, very seen in this state of almost like weakness and vulnerability, a fear that there's an energy here for some of you that this person may fear that you'd entertain what they have to say. You'd open the door just to crack, just to sort of hear what they're presenting, and then it's almost this like backlash sort of energy that you would be drawing them or luring them in just close enough with your initial receptivity to really just pummel them with all of this kind of pent-up frustration, all of this pent-up rage, all of these words that you've been waiting to speak, almost like a speech that has been planned out, a letter that you've written to them that you have not sent. There's a presumption that they'd be deserving of this. They're very fearful of that. They're very fearful, it feels like, also of some kind of a hot temper that they might have, their reactiveness. That could have been an issue in the past, and understanding that it's going to require some level of discomfort. It's going to require them almost being exposed to, the possibility, even if you say, you're watching this reading and you're thinking, well, I would be so open, I'd be so receptive, I'd be so loving, maybe I'd cry, and you're approaching this like an energy of softness, their own personal guilt and shame over what has happened, even if it was something very benign, very small. the time that it has taken them to kind of come to the point of wanting to course correct, that in and of itself is it's egregious almost. It's something that they are having a hard time kind of forgiving themselves for. They know on some level that they should have done something about this sooner to course correct. If it was like a third party situation, the grass was not greener on the other side. How they handled this situation, they're deserving of some degree of wrath or intensity on your part. And so they're almost, it feels like projecting a degree of shadow within themselves. They're almost punishing themselves in a certain extent. They're in the Eight of Swords. They're really trapped in their mind. And so they are assuming at this point that you would inevitably kind of inflict all of this wrath, all of these words that have just been waiting there, waiting to pour forth and really kind of damage them in return. Almost the idea of hurt people. They're cognizant enough that they have inflicted some degree of deep hurt or disappointment through actions, words, or even kind of a lack thereof, just an extended period of silence. That it's a fear of like, I don't know if I'm ready to expose myself to that yet. I don't know if I'm strong enough to just kind of sit and take what I have coming to me without sort of reacting in a very destructive manner, without sort of fighting fire with fire in that circumstance. If you were naturally very kind of upset, or even something where if you were expressing kind of like tears or just a lot of emotions, it feels that would be something that would make them so uncomfortable. There's an energy of understanding that they would become very defensive. They would become very combative with you in order to sort of retreat from the exposure of, deep and uncomfortable emotions, because it would bring up a sense of guilt within them. They don't feel to be somebody in general that is comfortable talking about feelings, hearing other people talk about their feelings, just matters of the heart. This is outside of the comfort zone. Their way of moving through the world, their level of expertise has to do with kind of things on the surface. When it gets deep, that's when they get to running, and it feels like something that whatever has happened in the situation with you, this is kind of a repeating pattern for your twin flame. This is not the first circumstance in their life where there has been an intensity. Maybe things are going really well, and then they subvert that, they dismantle that, they kind of it's a spoke in the wheel right there, just to kind of set things off kilter, off balance. Only in this situation with you, rather than kind of moving forward and just carrying on as if they've been very connected to this energetically, time has not served to lessen the guilt that they are feeling about that. And so there's almost the sense of, I know that I need to come clean. I know that I need to kind of bring this out into the light. I know that it becomes more and more painful every day, every month, every year that goes by, and I don't do something to course correct. I know that a window of opportunity is closing, a door of opportunity for you to really have almost empathy for them, or to be willing to kind of rebuild in the situation. Like, the longer it takes for them to come back with that apology, the more they are fearing that it'll be too little too late. You will have moved on. Maybe you already have moved on for some of you, or you are starting to move on. They're sensing that. They're seeing that. It's building in terms of this pressure. And it's this fear of like, with what I have to come back with, is this going to be enough to sort of pivot us in a new direction? Or is this sort of unchecked shadow within these, deep sort of fears of emotions and vulnerability within that might have undermined the connection in the past? Is this going to rear its ugly head again and kind of set us back even further past the point of no return? So let's see what their potential actions are towards you. Okay, so we've got the Two of Pentacles, which is Earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Ten of Cups, water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And Focus. So with this card, I was hearing keep the eye on the prize. So this definitely feels to be something that they remain, at least for the foreseeable future, in this kind of wobbly energy. Should I or shouldn't I? You may be coming up on some kind of milestone. Maybe it's a birthday, it's an anniversary. It's, the occasion that you last spoke with one another. It's something where it's like, okay, am I going to break free of this pattern? Am I going to break out of this cycle that we find ourselves in? They continue to look at you and feel you as this kind of wish fulfillment that they have turned their back on. But it almost fills with this idea of kind of, rather than sort of like facing that, rather than, at least in the context and the proximity of this reading, course correcting and moving back toward that wish fulfillment with the open declaration, the openness of the heart, the willingness to be vulnerable in the interest of doing what it takes, overcoming the challenges between the two of you, breaking the ice, breaking the silence in order to try and rebuild, in order to try and reach or grasp that higher potential and bring it down into the material sense. They continue to kind of juggle, dance between, maybe I should do this, maybe we can fix this, maybe it's, things will go well, and this deep sense of sort of like worry. If I expose myself, if I, kind of move in closer, then I'm going to be decimated. At least at this point, I'm in a power position. I hold all the cards because I was the one that cut off this connection. I was the one that, had the last word in this situation. And so it feels to be something that it's almost, there's a moral quality to this, that regardless of if the two of you are able to rebuild in this situation, there's a part of them that knows that this is some kind of heaviness, this is some sort of a burden, this is something that it carries like energetic implications, almost like karmic implications. That it's something to where they're understanding that they need to answer for this, they need to own up to this. There's a sense of almost, if they don't liberate the two of you from whatever has happened in the past, the heaviness there, that in some way they're going to be made to kind of pay for that one way or another. That's a recognition as well, that it feels like almost kind of, well, do I just hedge my bets and, kind of continue to just move forward anyway and hope that I can outrun karma, at least in this lifetime? They may not even be somebody that is kind of thinking about future timelines or future incarnations, sort of like, if I just keep moving in the direction that I have chosen and ignore everything, it'll go away. It feels like, they have told themselves this for quite some time, and it just keeps compounding. They keep being brought back to the reality of kind of what they've done, what they've walked away from. There's another part of them that is saying, I need to provide vindication in this. I still see this person. I still feel this person as this wish fulfillment, this 10 of Cups, this 10 of Pentacles. There's a big part of them that wants to at least knock on that door and say, is it possible for us to rebuild? Is it possible for us to let bygones be bygones and kind of change the outcome, change the ending of this story between the two of us? But at least for the time being, kind of also drawn to this idea with this infinity loop here. This might even tie into, and it's a timeless reading, so whenever you find these messages, just take them as they resonate. But at the time that I'm recording this, it's late September of 2023, and so numerologically, when we move into the year 2024, that adds up to the number 8. So this is tying into kind of for the remainder of this calendar year. They may still do this little dance and kind of almost putting it off at, maybe next year. Maybe next year will be the year when I kind of build up the courage to move forward. It's a sense of also, really sort of fearing, is another year going to go by? Are we going to do this dance of, avoidance for another year? Are we going to continue to ebb and flow with one another in this capacity? Or am I going to be the one that takes some sort of action step? Feels like the ball is definitely in their court. This doesn't feel like the energy where it would be practical. You might have tried to reach out to them and they could have just ignored you or told you to leave them alone, or it didn't go well the last time. And so it's almost like if this situation changes, if you break out of this pattern, it requires action on their part. But they're still just in this list of, it feels like an ongoing list of pros and cons that they've been sort of writing internally speaking. And at least in the present context of this reading, they don't feel any closer to kind of making a choice one way or another. It continues to be a sense of discomfort. It continues to be something that sort of weighs very heavily upon them. But at least the takeaway here is that as much as this has been like long-term silence, your patience is wearing thin. You're struggling with sort of like, why do I feel this person's energy? And these reminders and signs kind of rush into my reality and then they rush out again just as quickly. It's because they're doing this. It's because they're doing this back and forth on a very conscious level with this Pentacles energy. They are deliberately, it's not just passive, higher self is reaching out. This is a situation where the conscious 3D person is definitely weighing and evaluating, should I do something to change these circumstances? And then they lean back into the place of, it's just easier to kind of put my blinders on and move forward. And they're doing this back and forth, which you are picking up on. It feels like vice versa. When you're in these periods of time of you're really focused on this, you're very conscious, maybe even the context of you are watching this reading right now. If you're someone who's kind of tried to get off the twin flame journey or shift your focus elsewhere, this would almost be the energy with this mirrored kind of concept here. In real time, your twin flame is now having this surge of energy from you because you've put the focus in a very conscious way on them. What's going on? What are they thinking and feeling? What's happening in this situation? So it's the two of you really sort of pivoting back and forth, energetically speaking, through conscious efforts. That feels to be something, it's like the energetic sort of ripple effect of what's happening very internally for the two of you. So telepathy may possibly increase. That's something that almost unwittingly, unknowingly, their focus upon you in this situation. And is it the time? Should I do something different in this circumstance? That will be communicated. That will be presented. And so maybe the takeaway from this, the context then is it provides you with some degree of almost confirmation about, no, you're not just reaching for this. No, you're not just trying to hold on to false hope and belief. There is an energetic connection here. You are communicating in the higher realms and energetically speaking, even if the 3D reality looks very different. If it looks, like silence, that internal landscape, what's happening in that internal reality, it's a very different story from what is presented in the material sense. So maybe that provides you with some degree of vindication so you can continue to move forward in what feels like for a lot of people, you've reached kind of the end of the line in a way, in a certain stage, or maybe just in general, you're trying to make efforts to disconnect. So hopefully this helps to kind of bring some sort of peace that, and maybe this will change in the future. It feels like your twin keeps coming back around to this reality of, I need to do something different. I'm holding this heaviness within and it's not easing with time. The burden is getting heavier. It continues to weigh on them. It may reach the point where further down the road, they do something about that. Or they may continue on for a longer period of time and just that heaviness kind of compounds within. But if nothing else, for you to just have that bit of confirmation that consciously there are thoughts that are directed. You are not out of sight, out of mind. They are struggling with kind of putting that pride and ego aside and really stepping into a way of communicating that is not their natural love language. And especially if there are big things they need to apologize for, apology in the form of changed action. This is something that they're really struggling with. There's a fear of kind of rejection, a fear of making matters worse, a fear of even kind of hurting you more by sort of opening that door, bringing these wounds up into a very fresh place. So it's a variety of motivations, a lot of it being very, very fear-based, kind of self-motivated here. But then there's also a component of kind of, like, I have one shot in this situation. I don't know if I'm ready to take it yet. And if I take that leap of, faith too soon, then it totally dismantles everything. Then the door shuts permanently. And that's all there is to the story, is kind of how they're sitting in the energy right now. So perhaps this reading for some people is just sort of, it's that bit of confirmation that you need, that as much as there's like an ebb and a flow in the energies in this situation, it definitely is reflective of something on a very conscious level where your twin flame is, they are thinking about you. They're thinking about creating action, creating movement, or they're thinking in a nostalgic way of what has happened in the past. They're reviewing all of that. And so in that sense, then they are tapping in. It's a direct link to you energetically in those moments. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see, what does your twin flame want you to know at this time? Okay, and they say, I can't get you off my mind. So there's that confirmation right there, that Eight of Swords energy, heavily in the thoughts. This is all translating energetically to you. It feels to be something that for a lot of you, your twin flame is not on the stage of their journey where they're necessarily aware of that. They may feel, oh, these are just private thoughts. I'm just thinking about this internally. And yet there's a very direct line of energy that is being beamed to you on these occasions. They can't outrun this. They have not moved away from this situation as much as they are trying to kind of put other things in their life or distract themselves. It feels like even those distractions are really not sufficing at this particular point in time. They've reached kind of a point on the merry-go-round in this situation with you of, am I ready to do something different? Am I ready to change these circumstances? Am I ready to take action that kind of alters our narrative with one another? Or am I going to have another go around of this energy of sort of denial and running? This is happening, with this Two of Pentacles. It's kind of back and forth. Should I or shouldn't I? And they also say, I'm trying to heal old wounds. So this is tying in with that energy of the Knight of Pentacles, understanding that, course correction is required by way of actions that support apologies. They do not feel to be at a place of readiness or an understanding even of how exactly to prove, that I'm sorry, I've changed. Now, pretty obvious, like surface level things. Okay, if there were third party situations involved, don't cheat. That's a way to, course correct in that capacity. Or if it was something where they were very kind of distant before, be more loving, be more open. But it feels like they're understanding that it's something deeper than just kind of the most immediate and obvious fixes in this situation. There's a part of them that understands if this is to be something which can be fixed, can be sustained and maintained in a deeper and more satisfying way for both of us than it was in the past, then I'm going to have to go beyond the limits of what I have normally done to kind of placate, to appease, to apologize, anything that has been invested in this situation or in matters of the heart. Typically, there is an understanding for them that it's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be more substantial. They've got to mean what they say. They have to be able to be consistent. And so it really ties into ideas of, like a fear of commitment, a fear of vulnerability, a fear of stepping outside of the comfort zone, even speaking about a sense of guilt, wounding within, exposing themselves to, hurt feelings, whether that is anger or sorrow. It feels to be somebody that is very uncomfortable with displays of emotion of any kind. They're very disconnected from their own emotional body. It makes them very uncomfortable when other people express emotion, particularly kind of like longing and sorrow. It feels to be is their deep trigger point. And then also with kind of, fights and anger, this is also something that really just, it's very triggering for them as well. It may be something that it's a disagreement and they take it from like 0 to 10 very quickly in the situation. All of that it's reflective of some lack, some sort of wound within, that they're sort of not really sure kind of what the genesis of it is, not really sure how to heal that, how to fix that, but they're very aware that that's something which has undermined this connection in the past. It's undermined other connections, this sort of void or vacancy that they have within. And so it must be filled or healed or dealt with in some manner before they bring themselves forth to you, before they knock on this door and try to reintroduce themselves into this connection, so that you're not just stuck in the same loop, stuck in the same pattern, stuck in the same cycle, but are able to really build and grow and nurture one another in this situation moving forward. So it's the idea of like, I'm trying to heal old wounds, but I don't necessarily know what to do or where to even start with that. And they also say, I ran away from myself and not you. So confirmation there of, the level of emotional intensity that the two of you had reached. It really tapped on an area of discomfort within them where they have, it feels like, been very disconnected from the nature of their own emotions for quite some time. And it's almost kind of the love hurt them in a sense, because they were really sort of looking at, you're bringing all of this kind of beauty to the equation, and they feel that they've just got this single pentacle that they're hanging on to. It's a sense of almost kind of an inferiority complex is coming through here, or, some kind of wound within where maybe what they've given to connections in the past had been rejected, had been overlooked in a sense, where they're trying to just sort of overcompensate. This may be somebody who really has systematically kind of built their self-esteem or their image based on things, based on success, titles, money, what they have, who they know, where they've been, what they've done in their life. it's all these kind of things or these accolades, like a resume or a list of accomplishments. But in terms of feelings and emotions and intimacy and compassion, things of that nature, they've not been taught or to explore these things, to put value and meaning on these things. They've outrun a lot of kind of the depth of their own emotional body, very fearful of that. And so, by kind of sensing and seeing and experiencing this like Ten of Cups energy, this deep emotional satisfaction, this Ten of Pentacles, in so many ways you're everything that they've been looking for, that they hadn't come to the point in their life or their journey of admitting was truly fulfilling. They're just focused, it feels like, when you were last dealing with them, and in ways they still are, on kind of what it looks like on the surface, how it fills and fits those ego-based needs, rather than things of the soul, rather than things at a core level. And so, it's not that there was anything lacking within you. It's almost that everything was right within you. Everything was right within the possibilities and the potential in this situation. Rather than seizing the moment in this case, they ran back into the comfort zone. They ran from what was being mirrored to them in terms of, blocks around love, and even a deeper potential for love and a valuing of love that is not something that they've been accustomed to, or that they have been used to valuing up to this point in time. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got A, W, D, T, S, F, Q, K, B, M, V, N, S, A, O, O, H, G, Y, E, and U. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that channel in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. Shows the tiger's eye, along with this card, which says destiny. So to give kind of an overview of the energies associated with this card that can help you kind of determine if this is the group for you, if this is your situation. This is giving me the energy of kind of somebody you've been in a lot of back and forth with. It may be something where it's kind of been hot and cold between you and your twin flame, or there's been sort of these repeated cycles of running and chasing, almost the idea of like clockwork. You are, in good times with one another. Things are great. You're very much in sync. And then there'll be a trigger, maybe even kind of the same repeating series of triggers. This could be somebody who, comes towards you with this energy of, okay, I'm wanting to build, I'm wanting to grow, I've changed, I want to value, I want to appreciate you, I want to start again. Things go well for a while, and then it keeps being dismantled. It keeps being the same sort of trigger that is surfacing over and over and over again, to where you may feel very frustrated, like it's just a merry-go-round. You can't escape this connection. They come towards you that is in an energy that is so compelling. It's so convincing that they're ready. They're ready to invest. They're ready to build with you. And things, seem to go really well, only to kind of have it all fall apart once again. This can also really speak to a lot of mirrored energy between the two of you, a lot of sort of shared triggers, or even kind of aside from the energy of difficulty and trigger, it also feels to be that there's a lot of mirrored energy between the two of you in terms of similarities, similar upbringings, similar life paths and experiences, certain details about the two of you that very much mirror one another. You see eye to eye on a lot of levels, maybe even quirky things that you've never quite resonated with anyone else with, or just a part of this person that just feels so familiar, like you're looking in a mirror. There may be even physical similarities between the two of you. You look very much alike. There are just subtleties and nuances and little things about the way you speak, phrases that are said, gestures, that, even kind of in the early days when you had first met one another, it was, really sort of reflective of things that one another do, finishing each other's sentences, a lot of telepathy going on, a sense of even kind of you're having these direct interactions with one another, and there's this whole other layer of these energies that are connecting between the two of you. Depth and an intensity here, a lot of past life energy as well. So there may have even been certain circumstances where you're having these kind of visions of past lives that you've shared with this individual. A lot of things happening, in the dream space where you're having these kind of interactions with them, energetically speaking, in the guise of how they appeared in your previous lives with one another. Roads of destiny, path of destiny that has really aligned each other. A lot of synchronicity, serendipity in this situation, but also a sense of kind of not being sure, what does the future hold? Where are we going? It seems to be something where you're stuck in kind of a cycle with one another. And it might almost be where you're kind of fearing that a solution to this is needing to disconnect, needing to set some boundaries. Maybe you've just kind of let this person back in. You've opened up your heart to them. They've given a little, you've poured a lot into the situation, and then it's fallen apart again, to where you may be getting a lot of kind of confirmations or signs that it's time to really, in order to break free from this cycle, you're needing to sort of redirect some of that energy that you were pouring into them back onto yourself as well. That this is something to where, nothing changes if nothing changes. And it may really be kind of coming to your awareness that you hold the keys in this situation. You hold a lot of power in this situation, that kind of repeating the same thing over and over again with your twin flame in this capacity and wherever you are in your connection with one another, it's just yielding the same results. So it's almost something where you may, if you're in a disconnect, if you're in a no contact, and this is almost something where you've made this kind of resolve to yourself. I'm not going to make it so easy for them to come back in the next time. And you may have made that kind of promise to yourself over and over again, only to sort of, let your guard down. They just sort of, they're very convincing. You let them back in, and then you're left with some heartbreak, to where you may be getting very frustrated with you, kind of an energy of sort of spinning around in the same direction, but a lot of pressure that the focus needs to be kind of taken off of this person, taken off of this situation or your dynamic with one another at this point in time, and really just invested within you in order to be able to kind of rise above whatever cycle the two of you are stuck in with one another, to be able to kind of maximize on some of the other aspects and layers of this connection, deep spiritual things, qualities, psychic gifts and abilities, even in terms of that telepathy or like an energetic empathy between the two of you that you might not have necessarily been aware of or had access to within yourself, but that it's almost kind of this stuck energy, this round and round. It's coaxing you in the direction of exploring some of the other kind of layers or advantages or phenomenon that has really surfaced through this connection, through meeting your twin flame, through interacting with them and everything that's looked like, but that it's a need to kind of discover these things for yourself very personally. a sense of knowing this, but almost trying to outrun that destiny, trying to outrun that inevitable, almost kind of cling to these shreds of hope, which it feels like is kind of causing you to sort of take your twin back each time they're coming back to you, in the same energy, or reflective of a little bit of change, but that it's not necessarily sustainable at this point, or they haven't demonstrated that yet. So let's see what their current thoughts and feelings are about you and the state of the connection. Okay, so we have the Eight of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. The Ten of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Queen of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. And second chakra, Archangel Ariel. So it's definitely Kundalini energy here, a lot of creative energy, force and flow that your twin flame is experiencing. It feels to be something that you might not have been at the point of really comparing notes about these things that are going on, almost like the intensity and nature of this, especially in times where you're distant, where you're disconnected from one another. There may be a lot of kind of pull and flow and magnetism back towards one another, almost like you can feel their desire from afar, which may be why you keep opening the door to them again. This could even just be energetically speaking, even to tie back into this on this destiny card with all of these kind of different, the different faces, but it's the same face right here, almost kind of you're very alone in your energy, and yet you're very alone in your life. You might be in kind of a disconnect from your twin flame, and then they come to you energetically speaking, and you're wide open as far as giving and receiving in that capacity. Maybe like a need for healthier boundaries at this point in time, energetically speaking, but that's very much mirrored energy. They are sensing and seeing you from afar, even if their back is turned to this connection. It's almost like they can't outrun you. They can't outrun their feelings. They feel and sense the intensity of this energetic bond, which feels to be something that it's almost kind of, they might not be at the point of knowing how to articulate that, might not be ready to articulate that, but that feels to definitely be a contributing factor to, as much as they try to pull away, they're magnetized right back to you. And it's with the intention, it's with very good intentions each time to kind of really give this a fair chance, to really invest, to really course correct or do something different. And then it's almost, when you are in close proximity to one another, even if you're apart, but they're sort of open within themselves to the idea of, we can build something, we can make this work. I think I'm ready for this. I'm going to go forth and make this happen. It's almost like it reaches this level of co-creation, energetically speaking, that is just so intense. It's like the heat is turned up in the situation, and it becomes too much to bear, and then they just kind of have to run. They have to get breathing room. It's the energy of wandering, but not too far away, turning their back on the connection, but still holding on to this very conscious recognition of, I have never experienced anything this intense before. I've never experienced anything that, crackled like lightning, basically, that has sort of haunted my waking reality and my dreams. It feels to be something that they feel your energy all around them. You're like a companion. During their times of struggle, during their darkest hour, they have felt you there, kind of coaxing them forward, leading them beyond a sense of burden, internally speaking, which it feels like leads to them popping back up in your reality. This feels to be a group where, for a lot of you, you're still to some degree in contact with your twin flame, or if you've gone through these periods of kind of disconnect, running and chasing, you might be in a period right now where it's sort of silence between the two of you, but like clockwork, you have this sense that they'll be back, and it feels like they do have very good intentions, very beautiful intentions when they come towards you, but it's almost something that they're missing in this circumstance and situation, which it feels like kind of lends into the sense that you hold the keys and the power to sort of break the two of you free from this cycle and from this pattern, because they are almost not aware of the fact that they feel so drawn to you. They feel this intensity, they feel this heat between the two of you, and it feels really good. It feels like home. You represent this kind of warm and nurturing space for them, and so they're very enthusiastic. They're wanting to create something. They're very drawn towards you. They're very magnetized in, and it's almost the energy of kind of, in order to fully enjoy that in a long-term sense, there's some aspect of them which is blocked, which is maybe fearful of this degree of like a homecoming sort of energy. They're really wanting that, they're yearning that, and yet there's a sense of maybe security or home life. This inevitably falls apart. This can definitely stem from childhood wounds, something that has not been settled in that capacity, where as much as they are very drawn to you, it's a very pleasant experience, there's also kind of a fear of it won't last, and so they break away before it engulfs them. There's a sense of really fearing that they will be reshaped into a version of themselves that they don't recognize through this connection, which is very compelling, and yet at the same time brings up a lot of kind of fears of change, fear of the unknown, fear of kind of what that different or better version of them looks like, to where they're very unconscious of some degree of shadow within, some degree of like a lack within that needs to be resolved, or at least acknowledged. There needs to be a light shown on that within themselves, and it feels like that will do wonders in this circumstance and situation. You may be the one in this circumstance. If you're watching pick a card readings, you're watching tarot readings, you've at least explored the concept of twin flames, where you're a little more spiritually awakened or aware than your twin is, because they've got their back to this situation, in this capacity. They feel it, they sense it, but they don't necessarily have the language to describe it or to understand what this phenomenon is. Even if you've tossed around the term twin flame with one another, it feels that they're just looking at it purely as like a romantic connection, purely as like this intense and deep bond between two people, but they're not necessarily recognizing that in order to make that sustainable in a long-term sense, there's also the need to kind of trigger these deep-rooted shadows and sort of excavate and clear out all the paradigms, all the narratives within that contradict fully embracing and embodying and becoming this transcendent energy itself, this twin flame energy itself, in order to be able to cultivate and experience a sustainable partnership in that higher vibration between two people in a long-term sense. Like, they're not understanding that part of it, or they're not aware that, this is even a factor to a certain extent. This could be deep-seated kind of issues or things. This may even be things that stem from past lives between the two of you that have no root or genesis in this particular incarnation, but yet it's a sense of, I'm very much drawn to you, and yet I recoil. It feels like the right place to be is in proximity to you, and yet I just can't help but feeling this kind of antsiness, or this need to run when things are getting really good. And it feels to be something that they don't have the mechanism to understand, or to explore, to even know the right questions to ask, to sort of come up with these solutions, which it feels like is why you're almost kind of, you have the ability to step into a leadership role in this connection, by really allowing, it feels like, some kind of time and space for each of you to really go within, and to process and to heal and to kind of move beyond limitations and boundaries as far as love and a sense of personal kind of security and safety within intimate connections is concerned. That there may be almost kind of a necessary, within twin flame dynamics, there are these necessary periods of separation, and it almost feels like the yearning, the magnetism for the two of you is so great that you don't allow enough time, or you haven't allowed enough time in these circumstances, to really kind of do that individual work, to do that kind of internal processing and healing, in order to raise the personal vibration to such an extent that it's able to sustain this higher vibration that is accessible between the two of you. And so this is something that they're feeling, they're sensing, they're understanding it on an energetic level, but there's a disconnect in terms of the cognizant or conscious awareness of kind of, what is this? Why do I feel so drawn to this person? Why do I feel so pulled into this connection? And yet I can't help but sort of become very overwhelmed, very triggered, and kind of disconnect, need some breathing room again. There's an acknowledgement here that it creates confusion. As much as there is this urge to build and to grow with you, there's also almost this kind of unconscious force that compels them to sort of distance themselves or pull away. And so they feel very torn in this capacity, not necessarily having the answers, not necessarily knowing the right questions to ask at this particular point in time, as far as what is causing this. Is this something external? Is it something internal? Like they don't really know what direction to sort of look in for solutions at this point. So let's take a look at what some of the blocks, obstacles, fears, and challenges are that they're dealing with right now in terms of this connection or just their life in general at this point. Okay, so we've got the Ten of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And Judgment. I understand that everyone has their own unique path and challenges. So these cards are tying into a fear of vulnerability, or a fear of presenting themselves as someone who doesn't have all the answers, who doesn't have it all figured out. They're seeing you in this very nurturing Queen of Pentacles energy, and there is an understanding within them on a very conscious level that this connection, you, the experiences together, it's a motivation for them to step into like King of Pentacles energy, regardless of if you or they resonate as the divine masculine or divine feminine. There's a sense of kind of like, I need to match and mirror your energy and your effort in order for this connection to work moving forward. And yet there's a sense of them really not knowing where to start. And in some way, maybe this equates even with kind of like home life, childhood, some kind of lack in that sense of being judged or persecuted, or even a sense of you, a fear of you abandoning them altogether, or not being willing to kind of keep the lines of communication open, or to be willing to kind of work with them to construct and to create, as they are sort of seeking solutions within, or it feels like almost just kind of wandering in the dark at this particular point in time. Again, more people with the back turned to the viewer, so it's like they're not looking in the right direction for this. They need help in this situation, or almost it's like an elephant in the room, some kind of conversation that needs to take place. This can even tie into the energies of the two of you maybe sense this deeper bond between the two of you, and it has not been spoken out loud. You've not had that conversation. This is just a push-pull dynamic, where there's kind of this intensity, feelings and anticipation build, and then it gets so intense that one or both of you is kind of running from the situation. So it may be at this point where it's almost kind of leading to the burden of, I don't know why we can't just evolve things to the next level. I don't know what this means. I don't know what we are to one another. You may have some degree of knowledge and understanding based on being kind of more spiritually aware or awake, but it almost feels to be something that your twin flame is having those sort of inclinations or feelings. They may not have the language to describe it in terms of like a twin flame. Maybe they're thinking of you as a soulmate. They might not even necessarily, again, understand ideas about like past lives or soul connections or any of that. And so they're kind of just, they're feeling very perplexed and very afraid to kind of open up and discuss and sort of say to you, I've not experienced anything like this before, and it is exhilarating and it's terrifying. They're very afraid to kind of compare notes. They're very afraid of looking sort of weak or incompetent, like they're not on your level in a certain way, or afraid of kind of presenting themselves as not a safe space for you. That if they show some kind of weakness or some kind of confusion, if they're not just sort of vibing with you on that level of a lot that's unspoken, that kind of exists beyond your mundane interactions with one another, if they really tap on that sort of fear, or even the words of like, I feel that there's something more to this, they may be very frightened of that idea. They might have had some kind of, for some people, this isn't going to be for everyone, but for some people, this is almost feels like a situation of someone who may be familiar with twin flames, or soulmates even, and encountered somebody previously that they thought was their twin flame or they thought was their soulmate, but it was really just a catalyst for some kind of awakening. and they've encountered you, and this could be mirrored energy. This could be both of your stories. You both have encountered people that you thought were your soulmate, you thought were your twin flame, turned out to be catalysts. This can just apply to them, or even just apply to you. Something where there was almost this path that was being walked, and then it was disproven in a sense, or almost they've come into contact with you and they're very afraid of kind of like, if I open this door, if I use those words, if I say the magic word twin flame, if I call you my soulmate. I remember the last time I thought somebody fit that title, and it fell apart, and it turned out not to be what it was. And so they may be almost kind of jaded to that idea, the idea of soulmates, the idea of twin flames, the idea of sort of, even forever kind of connections in a mundane sense, if they came from sort of a troubled background, troubled sort of home life, something with that degree of kind of expressing to you just how meaningful you are, how next level this connection is. There's a fear of it almost kind of the fantasy being brought back down in a crashing halt to reality, a fear of getting it wrong again, or getting it wrong for the first time. A fear of them being, again, like judged as weak, or they don't necessarily feel to sort of equate kind of an expression of all of these sort of energies as a sign of strength, even though it feels to be something that if that conversation was had in a very open manner, that might actually be the glue that strengthens the two of you, which might be why it's time to sort of have some energy or time very consciously apart from one another, so that you're able to kind of go in and work on these shadows within yourselves. But there's something about kind of this idea even of this happily ever after, and a fear of almost, am I misjudging this? Am I misconstruing this? It's a fear of sort of putting all their eggs into this basket, maybe because of your history with one another and how things have already sort of fallen apart, or it's been difficult, or again, somebody, something in their past that they had thought was sort of the one. This was the place. This was home for them, and then it fell apart. And so it's a sense of almost, that happening once again, ghosts of the past, the same narrative, the same story happening once again, which feels to be something that, as much as they are drawn to kind of the potent creative potential here, it pulls them away. It kind of yanks them in the other direction. This idea of kind of the ghosts of the past as well, and the back turn, this can definitely tie into some kind of like past life wounds as well, where this sort of like fear of things falling apart, it again may have no genesis in anything that has happened in this current incarnation, but it's something stemming from your soul contract with one another, experiences with one another in a previous incarnation, to where it may be like you almost need to think outside of the box in order to heal this. Some kind of past life journey work, shamanic journeying that might be necessary to sort of heal the root of this wound that is it's evasive. It's hard to really pinpoint what that is. And to some extent, it feels like it's felt between the two of you, because it doesn't exist within this lifetime other than as just sort of a soul scar that you've brought with each of you. It's something that, it's kind of one of the things why you've reconnected with one another, is to sort of heal and alleviate this kind of baggage, this heaviness that you've carried around from experiences in previous lifetimes, so that your story can actually start fresh with one another. You can rewrite the narrative of not something that falls apart, but kind of open up the possibility of something more happening between the two of you, that's different from maybe your last incarnation or a series of incarnations, but it feels to be something that's very much outside of the box. Definitely for your person to understand or to articulate or put to words. And it feels like you might be a little closer to being able to kind of conceive of this, to wrap your mind around this, or to be able to explore, or even that you're the one to kind of find that solution. You're the one to kind of go down into that darkness, do that healing. And based on the nature of sort of this energetic connection between the two of you, your healing sends that healing energy to them. It helps to kind of point the way to that wound, or it helps to alleviate or free the two of you at the soul level from some sort of tether or binding to like a previous lifetime, and things that fell apart or that were very sort of hurtful, that it takes one person to go and sort of do that healing, and the two of you are free to kind of explore and lean into more of the creative potential, rather than being so almost like magnetized and yet unconsciously kind of recoiling from one another. So take a look at their potential actions towards you. the Emperor, which is Aries, illumination, and Ace of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. So this Ace of Cups can talk about heart-to-heart discussion, something that they present to you, but it comes from a place of guardedness. There's still a lot of fear-based energies at play here. There's still, with kind of this suit of armor that the Emperor is wearing and kind of this color red, this root chakra, deep fears of like personal identity, sense of safety and comfort. It's again the sense of like, I have so much love and I'm so compelled towards you, and yet at the same time I am so fearful of opening up and surrendering fully to this connection, that what is presented, it's almost, it's veiled. There's some kind of illusion that is presented. They don't depict or display to you the fullness of kind of what they want to say. They're almost kind of prepared for the worst in this situation. And so it almost feels to be that they trickle back into your life. They express something. It's some degree of almost, for the words that are spoken that might be a bit surface, or you're feeling that they're holding back, or that they're cloaking, or that they're guarded in a certain way, energetically speaking, they can't hide, they can't deny the truth. That sort of energy of the heart speaks volumes, but it might be something that is very much contradicted by sort of their approach. They may almost kind of be a bit stoic, sort of, you're leaning into conversations, or giving you almost like one word responses, like they're stonewalling you in a sense. And it provides this illumination that, again, it might be necessary for you to sort of take the high road in this situation and institute some kind of disconnect with the very intent and specific purpose of, work needs to be done kind of beyond the veil, beyond this lifetime, root work within, deep sort of like shadow work, things that we are not necessarily each individually able to perceive directly, but must infer by feeling, by intuition. It becomes apparent that it's kind of, there's a softening that needs to happen in order for this connection to kind of build or evolve into something different, to where you almost may need to, again, sort of step into more of that leadership role stance and kind of put your foot down in this situation. But the work that you do, the healing that you do, it translates over to your twin flame. Kind of with this idea of this Emperor sort of side-eyeing over here in the illumination, they feel and they receive, even if they're not willing to kind of express or speak about that. Whatever work you do to sort of heal from the frustration in this situation with them currently in this lifetime, whatever work you're doing to sort of go within and heal inner child wounds, wounds related to love and partnership, things, with your twin flame in previous lifetimes, this can tie into, even kind of like deep meditations, heart chakra meditations that you're doing. All of that sort of translates over to them energetically, to where you have the ability to lead by example, and there's almost this yearning to kind of give more, but they don't necessarily know how to get out of their own way at present to do that. And so they look to you as this example without speaking in words. Energetically, their focus is on you, and it's almost, teach me how to love, show me how to move beyond this, show me how to kind of heal this heaviness or peel away this burden that has been kind of keeping the free flow of expression of love between us limited in a certain capacity, to where it feels like ultimately then, like further down the road, it could lead to some sort of breakthrough. It feels like they do come in with some kind of offer of peace with this little dove and the communion wafer. It's a pentacle. It's something. It's some kind of nourishment. It's some kind of confirmation that they're still, as much as they've kind of stepped away from this connection, they haven't completely disconnected. They've wandered, but they're still here. They're still very present. They're still very much like a moth to the flame in this situation, which again feels to be something that really, the most important question it feels here for group 2 is sort of, what are you, the viewer, going to do in this circumstance and situation? Because your twin is kind of they're drawn to you, and yet they don't know how to get out of their own way enough to sort of let the free flow of the energy happen. And you're kind of the leader in this point, in this connection. You're the one that sort of has enough of the torch of personal illumination to be able to kind of lead the way, energetically speaking, in terms of deep personal healing. This even feels to tie into the fact of work that you are doing within yourself, emotionally speaking, energetically speaking. And if you're still having direct communication with your twin, as your vibration changes and raises, this is something that's almost translating to them in real time. So it's almost you needing to be that leader in order to kind of shift and break up what feels to be sort of a stagnant energy or a frustrating energy between the two of you, or needing to kind of take some time apart, release the connection for the purposes of being like clothes for spiritual maintenance, going into do that internal work, leading by that example of not, saying I'm fed up with this connection, I'm done with this connection, I never want to talk to you again, but just sort of you shift that focus and priority back on you. And it helps to kind of teach them a way to kind of recalibrate for themselves as well, or to start to sort of do that work. It's almost like they're looking to you of sort of like, what do we do at this point? Where do we go from here? I've kind of reached the end of the road as far as what I feel that I can consistently offer at this point, but it's the energy of saying that there should be more. They understand that they need to kind of rise up out of a version of them. They need to come off this throne of the emperor into that energy of the King of Pentacles, but almost without words, energetically speaking. They're sort of pivoting their energies or their focus towards you of you need to lead us to this next stage of how to accomplish that. So see what your twin flame wants you to know right now from their higher self. Okay, and they say, I'm afraid of change. So this can tie into that judgment energy, the fear of the unknown. They're afraid of breaking out of some pattern, afraid of letting this connection in or admitting fully to themselves that, especially if this is a situation where they had thought somebody else was the one, somebody else was their soulmate, somebody else was their twin flame, and they had kind of come to the point of, sort of releasing that idea, or even harboring or holding that within and just kind of resolving to themselves to, well, I guess it isn't meant to be. And then you've come into one another's lives, and this has all of a sudden opened the door to truth and this reality that, you are the one they've been looking for. This other person might have just been a catalyst. This other, even other disappointments in their life all set the stage for this moment, this destiny, this aligning of the two of your paths, in order to kind of awaken and encourage one another down this process or this path of deep personal healing, growth, and ascension. That there's a yearning for that. They're very much drawn to that. They're very much magnetized, but they're very afraid of the unknown. What does that better or best version of them look like? Because they become so accustomed to some degree of limitation within. It's almost like a fortress or a prison that they have had their heart within. They've been living within, and you have kind of presented them this beacon, this lighthouse of something else. There's a yearning to break free, but a fear of stepping outside of the bounds of what love has been to them up to this point in time, or ways in which they've almost been in survival mode and kind of a little bit closed off in the heart space. They also say, I know you are my person. So that is that confirmation right there of some kind of a deep conversation that wants to take place, needs to take place. You've been sort of skirting around this. Nobody's saying anything, or it's just been sort of hinted at or suggested. Even if you've thrown around terms like soulmate, twin flame, there's a sense within them that this goes deeper than just whatever they've researched, whatever kind of standard definition, twin flame signs and all of that comes through in practicality when one really feels and experiences that, particularly on the more challenging aspects of the journey. This is something to where, with these big kind of creative force and flow sort of energies, the challenge to raise that vibration. This is something that, words and signs and a list of things cannot quite prepare anybody for. It's very unique for each individual. Those personal shadows that are then dredged up, which are the limits, which must be transcended in order to step into that higher capacity to give and receive love to self first and foremost, and then with another, as kind of an extension of that. This is something that it's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. It's heavy lifting. It's burdensome energy. It's challenging, and this is something to where your twin is very much now aware of kind of an incentive in this connection, motivation to change, motivation to kind of build and grow and evolve, a sense of recognizing that in order to do what it takes, even if they don't necessarily know what all those steps are, it's just a matter of leaning into this discomfort and kind of pressing their way through the fires of transformation, despite their inclination to kind of run back in the comfort zone or distance themselves from the intensity of this connection. There's still a draw that keeps compelling them back to this point of leaning in deeper, knowing that there is something very powerful here, something very extraordinary here, something that goes even beyond the ability to explain and comprehend fully. They also say, I think about you every night. So the energies between the two of you may be very intense, kind of after dark. You're dreaming about one another. It feels like a lot of healing is exchanged in sort of the astral realm and the higher realms. This can be that confirmation as well, that work that you do, that you choose to do to heal and transcend your own personal limitations, it translates over to your twin. They are providing you with energetic support. They're providing you with that helping hand and that encouragement, even while the two of you are needing to do this sort of personal work on yourselves. They're thinking about kind of coming out of this nighttime shadowy energy, words and feelings, conversations that have been hidden and held in the dark. There is this desire to bring that out into the light, to shed light and illumination on that so the two of you can find creative solutions. You can open those lines of discussion, but they are very terrified, it feels like at this point, of what will come of that, for better or worse, kind of what the results of that would be. What if they're wrong, but also what if they are right? So we get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got P, M, E, P, T, J, A, G, S, H, C, H, S, N, L, V, I, F, N, E, and D. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that channel in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. Chose the tree agate, along with this card, which says truth. So to channel some introductory kind of energies here to help you see if this is fitting with your situation, if this feels right for your circumstance with your twin flame. This is bringing to mind the idea of that your twin flame could have outright denied that they had feelings for you, pushed you away. There may have been some momentum, some buildup between the two of you, and then they ghosted, ran from this situation, tried to really kind of backpedal on a lot of intensity that had been built between the two of you, promises made that were broken, a sense of really leaving you hanging where you've almost had to provide your own vindication. This is somebody who has been running from the truth of this connection. It feels like for quite some time. Energies between you and your twin flame might be very cold at this point. They almost feel detached. You can feel them energetically turning their back to you at this point. The energies may have really ebbed away. You can't feel your twin anymore. You don't feel them in quite the same way. This may be something where you've been left hanging, waiting for an apology, waiting for, the scales of justice to balance in this situation, waiting for your twin to come to their senses or to, really admit that they were wrong about something. They may have spoken very harshly, very unkindly, very unfairly. That could have been quite a contradiction to kind of the warmth in which you were dealing with one another previously. And it's something to where you're almost at the point of, shedding this connection, letting this connection go, maybe still holding on hope that someday they will turn around and make matters right. A sense of almost wondering, is the universe ever going to clue them in or wake them up to sort of the reality of the ripple effect of what has happened in this situation? A sense of almost them trying to deliberately put blinders up to these feelings, and you really kind of wondering or questioning, like, why have I been awoken to this connection? Why have I been put into contact with my twin flame only to have things fall apart and dissolve in this way? A lot of frustration as far as, maybe even needing to kind of focus on self-work, self-healing, different layers and aspects of this journey. Aside from romance and partnership, you may feel that you have some kind of like shared mission with your twin flame, and you've been waiting to get started on that. You've been compelled in certain directions, only they have not followed through. They're not being this companion in a material sense, or it feels like for a lot of you even energetically at this point in time, where you feel like you're just carrying the weight of this burden, the weight of the burden of the connection all on your own. With the idea of these kind of scales of justice, this might even be a circumstance where they've gone back to a previous spouse, somebody that they were dating before, an ex. They might have moved on with you, and then almost this person from their past could have sort of resurfaced and pulled them back into a situation. Where you feel very left out in the cold. Your twin flame may have even sort of moved on and created a family with somebody else, and you've kind of really been struggling, really been trying to understand what was the purpose of all of this. Why did they choose to move in this direction? Why did they not choose to kind of admit to or grow with or build with this connection? Something where it may be quite obvious that they are sort of settling. They've sort of settled back into this comfortably numb energy, this quiet desperation of, circumstances that maybe it's a sense of duty and obligation, but it's just they had expressed kind of that they were not happy in these circumstances in the past. It was things that really kind of brought out the worst in them. You may have even sort of, it could be something where they're presenting sort of this very happy exterior, showboating a lot as far as things they're putting on social media. That they're happy, they're great, they're living their best life. But you really know through encounters or experiences with them previously that what truly goes on behind closed doors, and the fact that a public image that they're presenting is very different from, what had been conveyed or expressed to you by them previously in terms of dealings with another person. So a lot of confusion as far as like, why would they return back to that individual? Why would they go back there when it was such a dissatisfying situation, or it was so difficult to kind of extract themselves from that? A sense of your hands really being tied as far as, maybe your twin has blocked you. They're non-responsive at this particular point in time. All you can do is kind of watch them living a very artificial life with another person, and a sense of kind of like, well, what is there for me now? What's the point of this for me? Where do I stand on this journey? They've moved forward, or they've moved on, or they've gone back into a circumstance and situation that, they had proclaimed to outgrow, they had claimed was no good for them. And then there they are back with that person, or back with that type of person. You may have really been kind of juggled, made to feel like an option even. They left you on the back burner, they left you hanging, they left your conversations unread, feeling very overlooked in this circumstance and situation, and saying, how do I get out of this? Sense of wanting to kind of jump off the twin flame journey, but not really feeling very tied and tethered and stuck to it. As much as your twin's energy might be very cold at this point in time, you're not feeling them in the same way. There's a sense of that you just can't disconnect. There's something else to learn from this situation, something that may be kind of frustrating, as far as I can't get to the truth of the matter. I can't find the solution to liberate myself. I don't know if I'm supposed to just hold space, if I'm supposed to wait. I don't know if I'm supposed to move forward. You may have tried to move on into other connections, and yet you're still just kind of chained to this person. You're still brought back to this. Almost the sense here for some of you of kind of, if you've tried to move on in connections with other people, you might have at those points in time kind of felt your twin's energy surge back up, and a possessiveness and a jealousy almost. They may have even resurfaced at different points in time, almost very aware that, you were making efforts to move on, only to sort of leave you hanging again, and a sense of that it's not fair, or it's imbalanced. Justice is owed in this situation and you're not getting it, or kind of a misleading energy that your twin may have presented at various points in time, or is even kind of still in the process of presenting, of sort of like, why, if you've pushed this away and you've turned your back, why is it that you're resurfacing again? You're coming up in my energies again. Why are you still in my dreams? Why are you still, almost like a sense of an invasive kind of energy when you've made efforts to move forward, and yet they're still keeping you very tethered or stuck, or you're finding it very hard to kind of extract or free yourself from this, when, you've done what you could materially speaking, but energetically speaking, there's still this tie between you and your twin that is, it feels like very unbreakable. There's a lot of kind of karma that needs to sort of play out, or scales that need to be balanced here, and it feels like you've done what you could for yourself, but there's this energy of almost kind of waiting, or there's something that they need to provide or to present to free you from this situation. So let's see what their current thoughts and feelings are about you and the state of the connection. Okay, so we have the Two of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Ten of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. The World, which is fixed energy, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. And door to personal healing and happiness. So as much as their actions may convey a very different story, there are a lot of deep feelings that your twin flame has for you that they are hiding or masquerading at this particular point in time. As much as you feel stuck and tethered to this circumstance, like you can't move on, even if their energy has gone very cold, it's almost like you just can't. You can only get so far from this situation. They're feeling very much fixed in place by this as well. They keep being brought back to these reminders of you. They keep seeing this recognition of almost like a wrong turn that was made, a choice that they should have leaned into by way of this connection. The times that you shared with one another, these were very productive energies. These were beautiful energies. These were healthy energies. There's a sense of almost, they're kind of wrapped up in some degree of toxicity right now, maybe even kind of working through some other sort of karmic pattern or cycle at this point. There's a recognition of that, that they've almost kind of chosen a karmic direction, whether that's a third party or whether this is even just kind of running from their feelings. Leaning in deeply to this connection and then shutting the door to it very abruptly, very kind of like a harsh truth or a cold and cutting sort of energy that they may have used rather than expressing sort of vulnerability or getting to the truth of whatever the trigger point was that caused them to sort of disconnect. They haven't been able to move on either. They're still feeling you. They're still very, very tethered to you. They're getting all these signs and reminders. They're aware that to invest or reinvest in the connection with you, that this is something which leads to a higher level of experience of love and partnership than they have known up to this point in time. And if there's a third party situation, then they are experiencing in that connection. It's almost the idea of kind of comparing and contrasting as well. If there's a third party, if they're with somebody, this person in a material sense could really fit all their needs and requirements. This could be the type of person that their family approves of, that they look really good together in what they're putting on social media or kind of what they're presenting. It fits sort of a typical definition of the right person. And yet here's this other sort of energy where you represent this door and this possibility to like deep personal emotional contentment, transcendent love, a love and an experience that is outside of the box. That very much could have been triggering because it's a contradiction to what other people around them, the nature of partnership, the nature of connection, what they've been taught kind of a relationship should look like. So there may be elements here of your circumstance and situation with one another that are kind of a little bit taboo, might have been something here, or at least they were kind of, if everything was nothing kind of out of the ordinary on the surface, it's almost something where the level of their emotions for you, the stirrings within, a version of them that might have been very kind of like classically romantic, something that, was almost kind of like fairy tale sort of energy here, that as compelling as this may have been, it's almost sort of, it feels like they felt at a certain point in time, they had their head up in the clouds to a certain extent. There was a fear of, I'm getting in really deep. This is leading in a new direction. I feel like this connection gives me wings, and I have breached through an atmosphere that I have known as far as love and partnerships up to this point in time. But then they looked around and really started to question, how do we make this work in a practical sense? Is this sustainable, or is this just kind of a fool's errand? Are we just living in a fool's paradise here? Is this something to where it's going to crash and burn? The longer we sort of lean into this connection with one another, the further that we invest, 10 years down the road, is it still going to feel as magical as it feels in this moment? It feels like that is something that they keep circling back around with, that they gave this situation up too soon. They turned their back on you too abruptly, that it was not a decision that they are fully comfortable with. That feels to be something that is kind of yielding this sense of that you're still very tied and tethered, even though they have their back to you in this situation, because there's a deep sense of regret that they've chosen the wrong option. It's almost the idea of kind of like love or money, and maybe just money in the sense of, again, practical. What was their comfort zone? What was sort of, typical relationships prior to meeting you? The dynamics of that, the power dynamics in those situations, the level of sort of emotions that were brought to the surface. They chose something that felt familiar, but now that they've almost like tasted the potential of the connection with you, it feels very difficult to sort of sit comfortably. And so they're almost overcompensating, trying to put on a good show that everything looks really happy, because really they're yearning for you. They're called back in your direction as the sense of something beyond the normal, something beyond what they have known of love and partnership. And they could have really, sort of taken this to a dark or negative place at one particular point in time. But it's almost like the more time that goes by in the internal landscape behind the mask, the truth and the reality is they almost ran from the beauty of this connection. If we think about it almost like devil and angel energy right here, they chose to move in the direction of that shadowy kind of devil energy, something lower vibration, something a bit toxic. You represent this other polarity, this other paradigm of a transcendent connection, something where they felt and still feel that they could have been safe to be seen as themselves, something that was kind of a connection, and in many ways, even in the energetic bond between the two of you, it's a love that heals. It's a love that fills and nurtures, and that might be so contradictory to what they've experienced in love and partnerships up to this point, which could be very conditional love, love that expects, love that demands, love that they have to only be a certain version of themselves in order to fit into that. And as much as it's not satisfying them on a soul level, it's what's known. It's the comfort zone up to this point in time. It feels like even in this present moment, they're very afraid of the positive changes that you have introduced them to. A version of them as well when they were last dealing with you, that might have kind of been changing for the better, and other people in their environment, in their world, could have been very triggered by this, your twins' vibration raising, a more expanded version of them. They could have gotten a lot of pushback that they almost didn't tell you about, which feels like one of the reasons they sort of shut the door on this, in order to kind of placate other people around them. Maybe not even people who directly objected to the connection, but just objected to something within your twin that was sort of changing for the better. And so they've kind of settled back down. They fluttered back down into this energy that other people around them, or the life that they built for themselves, the version of them that is necessary to kind of fit in that mold, fit in that box. But it's almost, they can't unsee what they have seen with you. They're still very affected. They're still very much coaxed or called in that direction of, there's a different way of living. There's a different way of loving that exists out there. You fundamentally changed your twin flame. And although they're kind of just putting on a good show, there's a lot of suffering and silence. They may be in the company of another person, but their heart still very much belongs to you. They still very much are thinking about kind of the past, and if they had made different decisions, what the future could look like if things were to change, if they were to change them. And I'm hearing a miracle. So if some kind of miracle happened, and almost like the work was done for them in a very easy way to kind of eliminate or remove the prohibitions, maybe even things having to do with kind of like job, location, domestic life, if these things were to just sort of fall away on their own, other people were able to initiate those changes. If they went back to kind of a previous spouse, for example, if only that person would leave them, if only they would find somebody else, then the door would be open, the road would be free, the path would be free to pursue you in this connection. So they've not been able to outrun these feelings, and that feels to be a major explanation as to why, even if they're cold, even if their backs turned, even if they were very cruel and callous and uncaring and seem to be kind of doing or presenting things that almost seem like they're rubbing it in your face, the fact that they have claimed, I don't care for you, I don't have feelings for you, I don't want this connection. There's a very different tale that their heart is telling you, that their energy is telling you. They're very much kind of crying out for you at the soul level and trying to sort of just fit into this very fixed reality, this box that you and this situation has almost broken them free from in the past. So this is a person who's very conflicted. What they're demonstrating is very different from this internal landscape. Behind the closed doors of their heart space, there's a lot of peace when they think of you, but also a lot of feeling very much like something is set in stone. There's no turning back from this point in time. And so it's almost kind of just suffering in silence, it feels like, at this particular point. But let's take a look and see what some of the blocks, obstacles, challenges, and fears are that they are dealing with in conjunction with this connection, or in their life in general at this point. Okay, so we have Ace of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. And indecision. I use my intuition in all aspects of life. So their higher self is definitely pulling them back in your direction, encouraging them to speak some kind of truth, make some kind of change, admit that they were wrong, admit that they made the wrong choice, cut away from things that are serving them at an ego level in the interest of pursuing or exploring this connection, what has fed them at a soul level, what continues to sort of feed and compel them emotionally speaking. And yet this energy of indecision is kind of like, if I break away from what is my status quo, if I take that leap of faith into this direction of a very expansive and transcendent love story, the recreation of that, if you would even have them back at this point in time, there's a fear about that as well. Maybe the words that were spoken have just severed this connection permanently and there's no coming back from this point. But if you were willing to open the door to them, there's a sense that fundamentally in many different ways, their life in general would change or would need to change. There may be habits, company that they keep, things even having to do with geography, where they live, if this is like a long distance connection. It's sacrifice and compromise that it feels like would be required on both your parts, that they are really struggling with, would this be worth it? Could we really make this work? Again, that idea of sort of what had triggered them at one point in time, like, is this just a fantasy? Is this just kind of wishful thinking, or can we, really ground this down into something sustainable? How does this play out in the long term? 10 years from now, is this still going to feel, like this level of height that we have reached with one another, or is this something where we're going to crash and burn? They're still very much torn by that. The soul wants what the soul wants is coming through with this Ace of Swords, and so the struggle is kind of, they are unable to break free of this connection energetically. They're unable to break free of the very distinct truth and reality that what they had tasted, what they had experienced with you is a higher level love. It's genuine on so many levels that they've not been able to replicate. It has not existed in their life before. It has opened the door to all sorts of different levels of self-exploration, the life they've been living in general, ways in which they've kind of been settling or putting themselves in a box, dimming their light in a certain manner. That this connection has blown the doors wide open on their experiences with you. It feels like they ran back in the direction of what was safe, known, and comfortable, and yet they can't unsee what they have seen with you, what they have been shown with you, what was mirrored to them, and this haunts them. It keeps bringing them back around to this idea of, you need to speak truth, you need to provide vindication. You need to course correct in this situation. You're living an artificial life. You're living a half life. There's something more out there for you. And yet it's a big fear of almost kind of like making the wrong choice, it being too little too late. Can they trust this? This feels like something where prior to meeting you, to encountering you, they were very disconnected from their own intuition. They may have had no kind of recognition of ideas about like higher self and energy, and they may not have thought about the soul or, kind of life purpose, or really even sort of questioned the environment, the company that they were keeping, how they were spending their time in this current incarnation. Nothing really beyond that, kind of just going through the motions day to day. It's an energy too of sort of feeling very disappointed in themselves if they had broken free of or had been released from, other third-party situations that for some people they've slumped back into that in a certain way. They've gone back to a situation they know is not in their highest good. And there's this energy here of, do I continue to kind of move through the years, move through my life in something that I know how to navigate in? Or do I take that leap of faith and actually sort of choose me for once, choose what resonates with me at a soul level, at an energetic level, rather than the type of life others around me have prescribed that I should be living, what feels, acceptable or looks like everybody else, or even kind of a partner that other people approve of, the type of person other people approve of versus kind of transcendent energies, things outside of the box that would have existed in the situation with you. It's a sense of being very drawn to that, but being very fearful of kind of the truth and the authenticity of sort of who they are that has been brought to the surface, or that you've shown them previously in this situation that may have been very triggering for people in their life. It may have been very hard to maintain the life they had constructed, professionally speaking, personally speaking. Relationships with friends and family could have really been affected through what was changing vibrationally within your twin flame previously. It could have really triggered people very unconsciously, the fact that they were almost stepping into more of their authenticity and light. They could have gotten a lot of pushback as far as that was concerned from people in their reality. And so it feels to be something that it's almost like they've shrunk back down to a version of them, more of an unhealed or an unaware version of them, a sleeping version of them that existed before the two of you came into contact with one another. And it's a sense of, now they're awake, now they're just kind of playing possum, now they're just kind of pretending to be asleep. They're really feeling artificial in their life at this particular point in time. It's very difficult for them to sort of play the part or to convince themselves, now that they've been shown something, that's very hard for them to convince themselves that this is the life that they want to be living, that this is exactly where they are happy, because they are drawn back to you. The internal landscape, the internal world is what you've shown them, the version of them that came to the surface. And yet it's a lot of fear as far as, can that internal reality match up and be sustainable in an external sense? So let's see what their potential actions are towards you. So we have the Eight of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Delight. And the Hierophant, which is Taurus. So this feels to be something that they continue with the Eight of Cups to keep their back turned to this connection. They, for the foreseeable future, kind of the context of this reading, the immediate future, this isn't forever and ever energy, but they continue along the path that they have chosen. They continue to walk away from the depth of experience with you in the interest of kind of emptiness, in the energy of sort of the unknown, sort of like, how sustainable is it, this life that I now feel so clearly artificial in, that I at one point in time had considered kind of my normal, my regular, I'd broken free from, I'd been shown the way to be liberated from, and yet I've chosen to move back in. They continue to face in that direction. However, it feels to be something that's almost coupled with kind of these slight energies here of starting to assert themselves in a certain level, starting to really recognize and feel the further that they move away from the experience with you, that they are almost minimizing or mitigating their own personal happiness and satisfaction. That it's something where it almost feels to be a very necessary period of time where they're needing to sort of step out into the wasteland, into this kind of cold energy. It's almost like somebody who just walks right into a tower moment, walks right into a dark night of the soul. Definitely a dark night of the soul, some reckoning within is necessary. Some things need to topple down within their life. They need to kind of move into a place of really discovering, who am I? Not what other people think I should be, not who I've pretending to be up to this point in time, but what resonates with me at a soul level. And some degree of like spiritual awakening with the Hierophant here is necessary for them on a personal level that may open the door to transformation further down the road for you. But it's almost, there's this necessary, they've been trying to outrun this connection. They're living a half-life at this particular point in time, and there's a sense of they need to continue along this road that they're walking in the opposite direction from you, because this is exactly what will align them with sort of the energy of things crashing down or them bringing things to a crashing halt in other ways in their life, because again, they've been awakened. Their heart has been activated. They can't unsee what has been shown to them. Even just energetically speaking, it feels like there continues to be some degree of like intermittent kind of chatter between the two of you, energetically speaking. If it's cold, if it's turned off at this point, if their backs to you, it feels on some level this may commence once again. It's like a little message in, some kind of a surge, something that occurs energetically for you that sort of lets you know, oh, we're still energetically connected in the heart space. But it's not necessarily accompanied by direct action or a course correction by them yet in the material sense, but it's almost kind of just something that lets you know there's still life to this connection, which may help you in kind of transcending, looking at sort of the bigger picture of this circumstance and situation, seeing kind of if this is the route that they're taking of sort of settling back into something. What are the ways in which you've been sort of settling back or not kind of aligning yourself with what you know is kind of worthy of you, what you know you deserve in your life, even if it's just settling for kind of holding out hope or feeling very, very trapped in this situation, that it's almost sort of something that comes through in flutters or more time that, they continue to sort of press in another direction. You really say enough is enough, and it's an act of liberation, or you come to the point of recognizing in some level you have the wings to kind of fly away from this situation. If they're not willing to meet you at these higher heights at this point, it's almost like you don't waste any more time. Maybe there's even some sort of divine intervention on your part, something that uplifts you. They descend into their personal darkness and it frees you in some way to kind of explore more fully your light. It's possible that the two of you can then kind of cross paths further down the road, but it feels to be something that's very self-directed energy. They continue to kind of live in this dualistic reality. Their backs turned, and yet you're all they can see at the heart space. You are their heart. You are written all over their heart, and so it's something to where it feels to be very kind of entrenched in tradition, something having to do with the status quo. They're not quite ready to break free from that, but it's almost the energy of sort of like an internal liberation that is required. This version of them couldn't give you what you want or need anyway. There's something that needs to transcend within them. There's a reckoning that needs to happen within them before they're able to bring you something that matches a higher vibrational potential in this situation. So they feel in many ways to be kind of headed down the proper path for the changes that are necessary spiritually in order to be able to return to you, provide some sort of vindication, participate with you once again in a deep and meaningful way that is more sustainable than what was experienced in the past. But it really requires some level of change in their own sort of spiritual journey and energetic journey. So it's kind of the sense of like never say never, but there's definitely something that they need to embark on within them, of really understanding and looking, and perhaps as much as they're trying to outrun you in this connection, that they collide very directly with how they've been kind of how they've sort of surrendered what really makes them as an individual truly happy very authentically at the soul level. They've been running from who they are, and it feels like they find that somehow, or it's shown to them somehow, but it might be through kind of like a tough love energy through the universe, some kind of karmic retribution that needs to happen, something that falls apart, and they're kind of just they're left in an energy of a little bit of lack. They're left kind of in love all alone. Maybe something falls apart in third party situations. Something in what they've prioritized kind of falls apart, and it leads them on this journey and path to self-exploration, to kind of recreating themselves, which ultimately is it's a giving to this connection. It's like by investing truly in themselves, not from a selfish ego-based place, but from like a deeply emotional, compassionate place, from a spiritual place. It ultimately sort of sets the stage in terms of what's possible for the two of you in terms of meaningful ascension in this connection, or some kind of liberation or freedom or healing in this connection a little bit further down the road. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see what does your twin flame want you to know at this time. okay. And they say, I can't do this right now. So that's that confirmation of still running, still trying to outrun the connection, trying to not look in the mirror in terms of not just the wounds that were reflected to them by you in this situation, but it feels like also the potential vibrationally, maybe even in who you are as a person, how you're living your life, something that was very inspirational to them that encouraged them to see there's another way out there than kind of what they've been settling for, the version of them that they have been showing to the world, the face that has been presented, and some kind of core authenticity within that they've been confronted with that they're just not ready to embrace. But again, it's the idea of they're almost kind of, they're running themselves right into a dark night of the soul. They're running themselves right into the ground at this point. They can't do it right now. But with this Hierophant, it's tying into the idea of at a certain point, they won't have a choice anymore. There's something that can only kind of outrun the bigger ramifications or layers of this twin flame dynamic. Aside from kind of matters of the heart between the two of you, there's something here in terms of this person's own sort of spiritual journey that they can run, but they can't hide from that. And so as much as they feel like they can't do it right now, they may be kind of nearing the point of that they're going to have to face these things. They also say, I regret what I said to you. So, again, apology that they know is owed, some kind of vindication. They do acknowledge that this was a harsh cutoff. It was very unfair. It was very cruel to kind of lean into this, to explore and experience. You may have felt very led on by your twin flame at a certain point in time. This may have really even caused you could be at the point of questioning, am I even a twin flame? Am I on a twin flame journey? What's the point of this? Why would I be so awakened, so activated by this person only to have it fall apart? Why did this need to feel so intense only to have such cruelty associated with it? And they do acknowledge, especially because of all this kind of loving energy that they're still holding within for you, that it hurts. The life they're living hurts them. There is a deep yearning to move back towards you, to be open, to be compassionate, to be gentle, to fix this situation. But they just keep running from what they need to fix within themselves, which would be the key in order to open up more of the beautiful energies and less of the kind of artificial energies in themselves and in the connection with you currently. They also say, I know I have mother issues. So this can really confirm the idea of pressure from people outside of them, maybe a mother, maybe, family who had a certain expectation of, sort of the life that they should have been living, a particular partner that would have been suitable, or a type of person, someone, maybe even a mother figure who directly disapproved of you, didn't like the changes in your twin flame in the course of the two of you, dealing with one another, sort of this spark, this alive kind of energy, this awakened sort of energy. It's a fear as well of being very nurtured, very safe and very protected, a sense of kind of questioning and leaning into the sense of, 10 years down the road, are we still going to feel the same way about one another? Choosing the route, even if this is something where they didn't go into a third party situation, they just chose to be alone, they just turned their back to you, denied feelings, sort of pushed this away after everything you'd been through and everything that had been sparked and awakened. It's a sense of almost kind of fearing or not feeling worthy of the deep expansion of love that they were shown, that they were introduced to within themselves and in this experience with you. And so they're understanding that they need to kind of nurture themselves. They need to, really heal some of these wounds within. They need to create a safe space within themselves before they are able to provide that sort of vindication and a safe space in which seeds of potential between the two of you can potentially be resurrected and nurtured and grow and blossom further down the road. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or your twin flame, or these can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got A, P, I, V, S, N, B, F, F, M, W, D, U O N O Y G and B. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I have launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.